Hurrah, there we go. The robot voice lady says that we are recording. Brilliant. So yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for this Feminist Greens Deputy Leadership Hustings. As I've said, we are recording. So if you are an attendee rather than a candidate and you don't want to be involved in the recording, please keep your camera off. Please keep your camera off anyway, because we're here to see the lovely deputy leadership candidates and not all of our attendees. That would be super helpful. And as I've said, please keep yourself muted during. We won't be taking questions from attendees during this. We've just sent out a list of questions to candidates in advance. So those will be the questions that we'll be going through in the order that we sent them. There were 10 questions, and I'm not convinced that we're going to get through all of them, but we will see how far we get to. And we will also give every candidate 1 minute for a final statement at the end as well. So Rachel has let us know that she's not able to join, unfortunately, because she is in a remote Wi-Fi-less area in France. But she has sent me a statement, which I will read at the end when we're all doing our final statements as well. Okie dokie. So I will ask each question. Oh, I haven't introduced myself. My name is up there, though. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Megan. I'm one of the co-chairs of Feminist Greens, along with Mars, who isn't able to join us tonight. Mars chaired our leadership hustings yesterday. So hello, I'm from Islington Green Party. So yeah, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. Because there are seven of you and we don't have loads of time, I will be a little bit strict. I have also written this lovely handmade sign that says 10 seconds backwards in my camera. And apparently you can flip your camera around. I don't know how to do that and I'm not going to try. So hopefully it will help if I just sort of wave that around and you can try and wrap up. And then I will try and cut you off at 90 seconds, but we'll see how we go. I'll also try and vary the order that I'm asking you guys to answer the questions as well. Yeah, okay. Just a reminder also for people attending that we have pledges on our Feminist Greens website that most of the candidates have filled in, which are slightly different to the questions we're asking tonight. So if you want to go and have a look at those as well, hopefully that should inform your decision about who you're voting for. Brilliant. Okay, we're ready. She says, famous last words. Okay, let me find the questions. So I am going to start with Annie for this first question, just to give you a heads up before I start reading it. Okay, question number one. Black women are the least represented and least supported demographic within the party. A woman of colour has never held a leadership role in the party. So, what plans do you have to encourage more black women to stand and win elections within the party? Over to you, Annie.
Hi, thank you very much. Well, firstly, start off with saying I'm really pleased to see that Antoinette is standing because she's brilliant. I've seen her across the party in action for a while, so I'm hoping that she ranks very highly, and I hope people vote for her highly ranked on this as well. Yeah, black women are underrepresented in the party. Definitely see that at a local level. I think first thing to do as white people is to listen and actively listen to what people from the global majority and black women in particular are telling us, and make sure that we actually respond to their needs on an individualized basis. What I do see often is that people from the global majority are treated as a homogenous whole, like as if they are all facing the same struggles or have the same issues. I see that in my own councillor group, where we have 5 members from the global majority, and one is a black woman, and she is often assumed to have the same struggles as a Muslim man, for example, and it's a completely different background that she has. So listening to our colleagues is really important, and actively listening to the needs that they have. I think it's really important in the practical level as well to make sure that we select candidates, and I made sure we did do this when I was part of the selection process in Bristol, was make sure we select people of colour in winnable seats, not just marginalised demographic seats, but seats that we know that they can win, so that we actually get more people elected where we know that they can win, and then support them as they require in their running for those elections.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Annie. Very well wrapped up after the 10-second mark. Ash, we will go to you next, please.
Yeah, so we have a big problem in general in how the Green Party fails to be representative of the population of the UK. What I would like to do and what I've committed to do as deputy leader is, assuming the next deputy leaders follow the ZAC model, which I certainly plan to if elected, of going around the country and helping local parties and regional parties to campaign. As deputy leader, I would prioritise my time with campaigns where the target candidates are people that we are failing to represent well as a party. I am not really very interested in doing the kind of flying visits that often have taken place with leaders and deputy leaders in the past, where you land somewhere, take some photos, and leave. I want, as deputy leader, to be able to spend time in local parties on the ground doing the work with those local activists, which means that I might hit fewer local parties, but I will be spending a significant amount of time there. And it will be people that we don't represent well. It'll be people of colour, it will be queer people, it will be the areas where we fail, working class people that I'm trying to represent. And so those are the campaigns that will get my focus. And middle class, more of the same, is not going to be where my focus is as a deputy leader when I'm campaigning for the party.
Thank you very much. Over to Chaz next.
Thanks. Yeah, well, we need a pool of candidates. If we're going to have leadership candidates, we need to have members, enough members that we will be able to find those leadership candidates from within that number. And what are the obstacles? What are the reasons why we don't have that pool of potential candidates? And is there a homogenous group anyway of Black women with exactly the same experiences and exactly the same kind of obstacles as each other? Surely we need to just start listening to those women and find out why they're not joining the Green Party and why they're not standing for the leadership. And then to do that, I think we need to put some resources into this area. And I think that's a question for the party as a whole. How do we get resources pointing towards the areas that we need to focus on in order to broaden our membership? And how do we raise the funds to do so? I think there needs to be a strategy around that, because I think that area, that particular question of the resources and funding that we need to do the work, that it lies outside just getting ourselves elected, keeping our local parties running, is really essential. And that's what I would want to get stuck into if I was deputy leader. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chaz. Thomas, we'll come to you next.
Thank you. I'm going to start. I didn't receive the questions beforehand. I don't know how I managed to miss that, but so I'm going to be doing everything off the cuff. But I've been the elections coordinator for the Southwest now for about 3 years, and even in my local party, this kind of common conversation I have with people is that, well, I don't think I can win, and I haven't got the money all the time to do it. And I think that's probably our biggest challenge, is to have those conversations with people to go, actually, you can stand and you can win, and the party will throw its weight behind you to be able to get you elected. As Ash mentioned, going out and being with local parties to try and help more Greens elected is something that I've already been doing, and I will continue to do regardless of these results. I absolutely love going across the country. I'm up in Newcastle for 2 days next week, Wednesday and Thursday, to help with their really important by-election. But for me, I always find it's quite scarce to actually find someone from the global majority to actually get behind, because we don't have many candidates. So I think that for me, the starting point is actually talking to people, convincing them that they can stand and they can win. And then also on more of a national scale is the economics of it, and how do we support candidates, I guess financially as well, to actually be able to afford to stand, because it's expensive and it's quite difficult even when you're elected.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And yeah, I'm sorry, Tom. I will try to maybe not come to you first for a lot of them so that you have a bit of time as well to think.
No, absolutely fine.
Cool. Thank you very much. Antoinette, we're over to you next.
Hi, thank you, Megan. So I really, really appreciate Feminist Greens raising this question. Obviously, as a Black woman, I would start by leading by example, putting myself forward for elections, which I have done, improving our vote share, which I have done, against the odds in many situations, standing in internal elections in the hopes that other women will be inspired to stand too. As I've previously said, if the party shows that it supports and promotes Black women, then other women from the global majority will say, okay, this is a party that represents me, that supports people like me. Now, having said that, I'm a little reluctant to encourage other Black women and Global South women to stand after the abuse I've received during this deputy leadership campaign. So as deputy leader, I would work to ensure that this kind of behaviour doesn't continue to happen, and to make sure our party is a safe and supportive place for Black women and all women. I also want to add as well that global majority Greens are now global majority Greens, not Greens of colour. So people really should try to avoid using people of colour, because a lot of us find it kind of offensive. Global majority, global South, people of African descent, Black people, those are better terms to use. Also, be really careful about talking about class with Black women and Black people. Not all Black women are working class. I've actually been told that, I'm the wrong sort of Black woman for the party because I'm not working class. So let's be really careful. Thank you, Megan. Really careful about classism, because that is also a form of exclusion for Black people and for Black women. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Antoinette. Alex, you're up next.
Thank you. So I'm glad to be following on from Antoinette, because I was actually going to refer to something that she posted on her social media, which is one of my favourite things from this campaign, is getting to know all the other people standing for deputy leader. So there was a video that Antoinette posted that I would suggest everyone go and watch, which is mentioning that when talking about this subject, that white people saying that they will lift up and promote underrepresented voices, and especially from the global south, is white saviorism. And I think that's absolutely right. It is problematic as well, and I don't really want to get into saying anything I say being taken as the answer to this problem, because I'm not part of an underrepresented community, and I think the abuse that Antoinette also mentioned just then, I think is a crucial part of the blocker to getting Black women to stand for the Green Party, because it's very easy for me as a white man to come in and say, oh yeah, I'll stand, and I will get abuse for my policy choices, but I won't get abuse for who I am. So it's not just about what I've said previously on other similar questions, which is talk to people in the communities we want to see represented in the party, and people who are running those groups containing Black women and run by Black women, but asking them what the barriers are to stand and working to break down those barriers, but also making sure that those support networks are in place so that they're getting that support. Because I really like Jacinta Ardern's line that they are us and we are them, and I think that until that is true for all, the work continues.
Thanks very much, Alex. I'm really pleased to see that my sign is working really well. You guys are all finishing 10 seconds later on the dot. Frank, you're up next. Oh, you are on mute.
Thank you. First of all, just absolute solidarity with Antoinette. I know that going through the internal elections process, it opened my eyes to how divisive things can become. And I know that we've all tried to keep in touch, and Antoinette and I have spoken throughout this, and I hope that we're all leading a really positive campaign and showing the best of the Green Party, and I feel that the majority of us are doing that. And I feel that we all have a responsibility to celebrate and empower and make sure that our party is uplifting the voices of marginalised people, and particularly Black women and those that have traditionally in our party not had a space to be able to speak up. The global majority Greens have done a great job in offering grants, and as a young Green myself, I've seen how helpful that is in ensuring that people can go out there and win elections. And we have to challenge this male-centric view that society as a whole has, and our party also, unfortunately, adopts as a result of that. And that's through our comms, that's through the knowledge basis. And I believe that making sure that we have a group of not 4 candidates looking to get into Parliament, but 40 from a diverse range of communities, a diverse range of backgrounds, that we have a spokespersons panel, a shadow cabinet, if you like, that really is representative of our country. That's how we can grow, make sure that we attract more diverse people to our party, and that we can get people elected and win. And I hope with my experience as a campaign manager for the party, I can help make that happen. And just to finish by saying that in my community, where 98% of people are white, I'm really proud that we as the Greens have been able to make sure that we have fielded women in most of our elections, but also Black women too. And I think that's something that we have to work really hard on and make sure that when we do find people, we look after them.
Thank you very much, Frank. Okie dokie. I will move on to question number 2 now. And I will be going to Ash first, just to give you a heads up for this one. So question number 2 is, As the basic human rights of trans plus people face escalating attacks from the government, right-wing politicians, and even public institutions like the EHRC and the NHS, how will you ensure the Green Party is not just a safe space, but be a fierce advocate for policy that enables and emboldens trans plus people to thrive in society, free from discrimination, abuse, and violence? So we will go over to you there, Ash. Thank you.
Well, it's no secret that there's an extremely hostile environment, not only in this country, but also very much in the Green Party. I think we are slowly sliding towards a cultural genocide in the UK targeted towards trans people. Within the Green Party, as a very visible trans person, I've had quite a lot of abuse directed my way, up to and including a violent attack on my home before I moved house. Which was made clear that it was very much connected to Green Party stuff and gender critical arguments. I think it makes a big difference who we have in leadership and what they say and how they conduct themselves. And I think for a very long time, we have had leadership who say the words but don't do the actions. I think, especially from Adrian, we have seen an attempt to mollify an increasingly radical corner of the party and to some point increasingly violent. As a deputy leader, I would challenge this cult of hate that is slowly escalating both in the UK and within the Green Party. I would be a very fierce advocate for my trans siblings, and I would not try and sit on the fence. I would not try and argue. I would not try and intervene in disciplinary cases in favour of people who engage in unacceptable behaviour in the party. And if I was a deputy leader, I would publicly challenge any leaders that do that kind of unacceptable behaviour. I would use my platform to challenge it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ash. We will be going to Annie next. Annie and their cat.
Yes, and my cat, who has been joining my hustings. Well, firstly, I'm queer and trans, so that demonstrates I've got quite a lot of skin in this particular game. I have demonstrated through my time in the party, which is about 15 years now, and I've been out as trans in the party for over 10 years, that I'm willing to represent the community and stand up for trans rights at great personal cost on repeat. And I have done over the time. I was previously co-chair of Green Party Women. And in my time as Green Party Women, the amount of complaints that came in about me trying to get me suspended and expelled from the party were extraordinary. To echo what Antoinette said about the abuse that people have received in this campaign, I've had a continuous stream of abusive emails and social media contacts, and I know Ash will have as well as another trans person. It's a demonstration of the abuse that we get for putting our heads above the parapet, just like Antoinette does as a Black woman. And yet we are here doing it again and again because it's the right thing to do for representation. It's the right thing to do to say, no, you won't remove us from society. You will not make us invisible. We are still here and we're proud and we'll keep going. And that's what I have always done in the party and in society. And I'll continue doing that in the future. And I think as we've got the chance to elect a deputy that is trans, and I think it's a really good demonstration of the party's values as well.
Thank you very much, Annie. We are going to Thomas next.
Thank you. Yeah, I find it shocking that just kind of seeing what's going on, even like internally in the party as well, somewhere that I consider my home, that this is so like affluent at the moment. And I really, you know, it's always kind of been there, and it's grown so quickly, because we're just kind of the culture war that's going on. I think Ash is right in that we are kind of going towards this full-on culture war in the country. And to me, it's that kind of, when people say it's like they first go for the immigrants, then they go for someone else, and then they'll continue that cycle until they've divided us all. And that's not a country or a world that I wanna live in, where we are divided. I will absolutely stand against transphobia within the party. I think that it's so important that everyone has a space. We're meant to be an inclusive party. And I know people say like, oh, well, it's a difference in views and, it's a protected characteristic and stuff. But actually, when it gets to the point in where it's making people unsafe, I don't think there should be a place for it in the party. I don't think there should be a place for it in the country or the world. And that is my view on it. And that is something that I will continue to fight. But to be honest, if that is something that is your most important choice in this deputy leadership hustings, then I probably would say that Ash and Annie, your candidates for that, because they will do above and beyond what I can do.
Thank you very much, Thomas. We're going to Chaz next.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to express my horror at this abuse that the candidates have been talking about. I think that's just absolutely atrocious. It must be horrible for you. I'm really sorry to hear about that. I mean, I'm standing as obviously I'm not a trans person, but I'm standing in solidarity with trans people. I completely agree with the Green Party policy, and I will do whatever I can to support trans people and maintain that position. It was interesting. I was at Green Gathering Festival recently and saw Billy Bragg on stage, and he said something that did actually resonate with me, where he was talking about the whole trans issue and saying, and I don't think people of my age group are doing enough to stand in solidarity with trans people. This is like the new frontier, like it was back in the 80s with lesbian and gay liberation movement. This is like the frontier that we're on, and you need to, you lot, he's kind of looking out at everybody there. You need to get on board with that. I thought he's right about that. That's my answer.
Thank you, Chaz. Alex, we'll go to you next.
Thank you, and I definitely repeat the solidarity with Ash and Annie and Antoinette for the abuse mentioned earlier. I think some of this comes down to things I've repeated in Hustings interviews, is that social media particularly trades in division and engagement and making sure that you see the most horrible things possible, so that you then react and get involved with it, so that you can make money and see adverts for social media companies. So I think that's one of the reasons why I know everyone else has talked about cutting through on social media, why I'm not on Twitter, because I will not engage in particularly the worst a company where Elon Musk obviously has a very strong transphobic views, and I will not engage in that. And I think we have to be careful where we're spending money, and I would prefer to see the party come away from that. I think Thomas will know because he was in this conversation. There was somebody discussing on Blue Sky today around whether gender critical people should be allowed in the party, and said the Green Party is not the trans party. And I think really we are the trans party. We are the party that has the best policies on trans people. It's not a trans issue. It's an issue of prejudice from people who can't comprehend that someone could think different from them. I'm here to hold space, listen, and reflect, and take action on what I'm told trans people need to feel safe, and then implement it. I will say I don't always get it right. I know when I've been in a council meeting and a fellow councillor was misgendered by an officer, entirely accidentally, I'm sure, and I raised a point of order to point out it had happened. But in the discussion afterwards with that councillor, they felt I'd taken their agency away by raising it myself, which was a fair point, and that was a learning experience for me. And I think what I learned from that is, it's not always right to be a fierce advocate. It's not always the right approach, but sometimes just empathising afterwards is enough. But it is important that the Green Party leads the fight for trans people to thrive in a society free from discrimination, abuse and violence.
Thank you, Alex. Frank, we'll come to you next.
Thank you. First of all, it's great that the party has got such fantastic liberation groups that have engaged so well with the leadership of Stings and made sure that they've held us all to account on the issues that matter most to them. And I think that that's a really important part of our internal elections process. And it's just great to see such a diverse range of candidates standing for the leadership positions. And that's something that we should be so proud of, that we as a party are in the position to do this when the parties aren't, and they don't have the policy that are any like ours. Greens are ahead of the curve, and I know those a while through very, very difficult conversations, very times. And I hope that we can move on from that chapter and be a party that knows where it stands on trans rights and is very, very proud of its position. I'm not afraid to say our party policy, unlike others have been previously, and acknowledge that trans women are women, trans men men, and that non-binary identity is completely valid, and to recognise that we have to go out into society and ensure that we stand up for that policy. When I ran for Mayor of the East Midlands, one of the key priorities of mine was to create LGBTIQA plus accreditation so that we could have safe spaces across our vast community of over 2 million people, and so that we were celebrating the voices of those that have been so often marginalised. And I think that's what it comes back to. For me, this is always about elections and making sure we get Greens elected, and it's ensuring we have people in positions of power that can stand up and advocate for themselves, and with party support them in doing that.
Thank you, Frank. Antoinette, we'll come over to you then.
Thank you. Okay, so by being a firm ally, by not speaking for trans people, but amplifying their voices, and making sure that they feel welcome, accepted, and treated like any other person. This is an assumption for me, but I assume that the amount of attention that their community gets can exacerbate feelings of not feeling safe, of being unduly scrutinised. One of my colleagues within the party, a trans woman, I thought, again, it's just my personal opinion, I feel was not supported when she stood for an external election. And I think that we need to prioritise protecting trans women and women in general, also Global South people, from the increased hate and scrutiny they face when they go for internal and external elections. And again, you know, solidarity to Annie and Ash. So my thumb's just like trying to mute my.
No, that's fine, thank you. Okay, bro, we'll move on to question number 3 next. And I'll just make sure that Thomas is not high up, just to make sure that he has a chance to get back from what he's up to. Okie dokie. So, oh wait, I was going to tell you, Frank, you will be first answering this question. Great. So the next question is, disabled people make up 1/4 of the population, but are almost always treated as an afterthought if they are considered at all. What have you done and what will you do to dismantle systemic ableism, break down barriers, and include disabled people fully, both internally in the party and externally in society as a whole? So over to you, Frank.
This is a really important question, and one which we haven't been asked all that often whilst on the campaign trail, and so I'm pleased that it's coming up today. My dad is a wheelchair user, and he has a degenerative condition, and so I see firsthand the impact that has on him, and then the additional responsibility that places on others around him trying to support him, like myself. And we're going to talk a little bit later on about those kinds of issues as well, and caring responsibilities. But my campaign manager during the local elections this time round, Gary, was neurodivergent, but also suffered with fibromyalgia and used a crutch, and wasn't able to get out and about. And I was really proud of our local parties, how we came together to ensure that Gary was able to take part in the campaign, to be able to have a role, to be able to support, to be able to feel like he was making a difference in a way where people, I think, often feel if they're not out leafleting that they're not doing something which is supporting the campaign, and to ensure that we have roles that are accessible for everyone. So I was really proud of us for doing that. And again, when standing for East Midlands Mayor, I engaged with a local charity in Nottingham, which took me out on the streets, using public transport, using goggles, which show you what life is like as somebody who has a visual impairment. And it was really important for me to do that and understand how we, when we're urban planning, as local councillors, making sure that we're getting things right for everybody. We're making the places we live, the places we call home, as accessible as possible. And again, it just comes back to celebrating and empowering people. And I'm really pleased to have worked with Warwickshire Green Party, who have elected the fantastic Tracy Drew, and made sure that we are able to have disabled people as Green campaigners, even when we rely so much on getting out and about on the streets.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Antoinette, we will come to you next for that question.
Hi, okay, so I made a point of going to the Towards Black Disability Justice panel at the Black Lives Matter Festival, which was hosted by Simi Roach and Annabelle Chouamimo, in order to find out more, to learn directly from disabled activists. And they discussed how many of the improvements and advancements in society have come about as a result of disabled activists and campaigners, like more public space on public transport, more space on public transport, which has benefited myself as a cyclist, as well as parents with prams and so on. And they also highlighted how once improvements get adopted by society at large, the involvement of disabled campaigners is erased. So highlighting that if we support and cater to disabled people, if we listen and respect their needs, everyone benefits, and that they are integral to society. And I am going to do a more extensive video about my thoughts from that panel on my social media.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Antoinette. We will go to Alex next for that question.
Thank you. So we have stood and continue to stand disabled candidates in Worcester. We've adapted our campaigns and activity to support what they're able to do. Similar to Frank mentioned about mobility issues, people do feel like that if they're not out canvassing, that they're not contributing. But I think it's important that we are electing those people so that they are in the room making policy and able to make their comments. The world, as I see it, is not divided into disabled and able, but rather disabled and not currently disabled. Because generally, affordances for the disabled usually make the world better for all. As an example, so I've worked with a local cycling group in Worcester, Bike Worcester, to measure all the barriers on footpaths. Those barriers, staggered barriers you see a lot around the place. A lot of those aren't in compliance with disability regulations. So we've been out and measured every single one in Worcester to identify which ones don't comply with regulations. And slowly they have been getting replaced with bollards and moved further apart, which is a change that helps people with mobility scooters, wheelchairs, parents with pushchairs and cyclists. Accessibility needs to be included in how things work from the start. It's not an afterthought to be tacked on. When I first stood as a paper candidate in Claims, one of my 3 campaign messages was dealing with pavement parking, again, because it causes huge problems for people using mobility scooters and wheelchairs, but also pushchairs and prams, etc. So disabled people must be included from the start, and that's the world I will campaign to see. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, we will go to Annie next.
Thanks. Some great practical points and solutions have been brought forward already, so I won't repeat those. But it's important to think about the social model of disability, where we are disabled by society rather than being disabled ourselves. And there is a caveat within that, is that there are some disabilities which will unfortunately not always be able to be mitigated, but we can definitely have our lives improved by more social inclusion and changes to the way in which society operates. And I'm speaking as a person with disabilities. I am disabled myself, and it's something that when I say I'm disabled, people quite often assume it's a neurodiversity, and I am autistic and ADHD, but I also have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder, an autoimmune condition. And it manifests in chronic pain, chronic fatigue, entirely exacerbated by long COVID, which is, in terms of the growing population of people with disabilities, long COVID is something that we are not addressing sufficiently or at all, really. In fact, we're kind of ignoring as a society. And so in terms of what I'm doing, and I must admit, I struggle to talk about my disabilities because there is such an innate ableism in the party that when I'm standing for this role and I'm saying I'm disabled, I know there will be people reading it or hearing it and going, well, they're disabled, so they can't possibly do that role, because that is what we are challenged by continuously. So one of the reasons why I'm standing is to be that very visible representation of people with disabilities being able to do everything that everybody else can with the what's the word? Oh God, see, this is where my brain's gone. But the making the adjustments that we will require in society to make it an inclusive, intersectional, and equitable society and party for us all.
Thank you, Annie. Hopefully it wasn't me waving the sign around that threw you off there. Okay, Ash, we will come to you next.
Sure. I learned a lot over the last 5 years. I got into healthcare. I treated a lot of patients with complex disabilities. Taking care of my father as he was dying, I learned an awful lot. I've learned a lot from my partner Kate as well. I also learned a lot from Zai, a friend of mine in the party, who put it to me that everybody becomes disabled eventually, unless you're very lucky. It waits for us all. And she put it to me that getting society to think about disability in that way would be a really big step in getting society to treat disability in an effective and humane way. And I think that that informs a lot of my politics, a lot of how I think about disability now. I think as a party, we've got a lot of failures that we need to reckon with. I've seen conferences where disabled speakers were unable to get on stage, just massive oversights like that. I think recently with the assisted dying bill, we had a situation where our MPs supported a bill that theoretically our manifesto was in favour of, but it was very, very clear that a great deal of disabled activists really strongly opposed. And I think we really need to think twice about how we approach bills like that in future, especially with a growing MP group. Um, I think that the party is not currently compliant with the Disability Confidence Scheme. I'd like to challenge that and investigate it as part of GPEX. And also, I'd like all of our campaign days to be fully accessible. And I will push for that on anything I attend.
Thank you very much. Great wrapping up at the end. Chaz, over to you next.
Yeah, obviously some great points already made about social model of disability and also the long COVID point. I thought that was a really good point there. Yeah, I mean, there's a campaigning group, disabled campaigning group in Richmond, which I've been helping to support, and particularly on issues of housing, where they've produced a report that I managed to get some traction with the council. So, you know, this is part of what we do as councillors. We try to help as many people as possible across the board, and disabled people obviously need some, in some cases, some extra measures of support there. So again, I just support disabled people, talk to them, find out what their issues are, try and push them forward at every step.
Thanks, Jazz. Thomas, we will go to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think as most other people have mentioned, is that we've all either had personal experiences or know people, close, or in my case, my mum. And I think it really speaks with like one in four is that everyone should know someone theoretically who is or might be soon disabled. And for me, yeah, like one of my local party members, I spend a lot of time with campaigning is in a wheelchair, and it really puts into perspective about actually you almost have exclusion zones now in places where they just can't go, and it's so unfair. It's really interesting because now that the party is growing and now that we're getting more like media sight, is that we have the ability, as we would have the ability as deputy leaders, but also as many of us are councillors and in public facing roles, to kind of tell those stories, personal and of other people. For me, my focus would kind of be around healthcare and how we start to reinvest in our healthcare to make sure that actually that's one of the biggest kind of areas in where we can give support, is how do we help people become better and manage. Something I've really noticed in the NHS at the moment is that we seem to just kind of overlying manage conditions rather than in a lot of the time kind of actually help people improve their lives. So for me, that's somewhere that I would like to spend a lot of my time on.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Thomas. Okay, that's question 3. I will move on to question number 4. And Ash, you will be answering this first, just a heads up. So question number 4 is, we know that women, particularly single mothers, elderly women, and those living in poverty, are often hit hardest by climate impacts like flooding, heat waves, and housing insecurity. But urban climate resilience strategies rarely account for gender. So if elected, how would you ensure that climate policy and urban design respond to the specific vulnerabilities and strengths of women, rather than treating people as one size fits all?
I think there are two big pillars to this problem. I think one is the lack of representation of women in politics generally, which is ground that I won't heavily tread because I think it's the more obvious thing. What I did read about was about inequalities that affect men and women in society. There was one about men are less likely to access doctors and therefore tend to have worse health outcomes. And one of the things that was mentioned in there is that even though women aren't necessarily less likely to talk to an MP or an elected councillor at a surgery, there was a strong suggestion by a study that women were less likely to be listened to by their elected representatives, that issues raised by women in councillors' surgeries and in MP surgeries were less likely to be brought up in councils and by MPs in Parliament. And I think that is probably something that is not talked about enough and something that is not well understood. And I think it's quite likely that as a party with a huge number of councillors, it is maybe something that has flown under the radar for us as a party. I think it's an unconscious bias that I've never heard anyone talking about in the party. And I think it's something that we should talk about more and explore and maybe think about unconscious bias training to change that in how we represent people.
Great, thank you, Ash. Chaz, you're up next for that one.
Yeah, well, firstly, of course, we need to combat climate change. We need to get to the roots, the causes of climate change, so that we can find ways to avoid these massive impacts which are going to occur if we don't. So our climate campaigning is absolutely key. Also, if we're talking about women in other countries, in the global south or and less developed countries, then we need to provide more international aid so that we can mitigate those impacts. I think the question about urban design, I'm not quite sure what it's really driving at. I think for me, urban design or good design will have within it features which are good for accessibility, which mitigate impacts of climate change, which allow for individual residents and communities and help to build communities as well. So it's not just, I mean, that's good design. And yet there are good examples, plenty of good examples, which we don't hear about enough of good urban design, which caters for all of those kind of needs that are individuals, but also build communities. So I think more heightened awareness of what is possible. That would be my answer to that question.
Great, thank you, Chaz. Thomas, we will come to you next.
Yes, I have personal experience of I had a single mum for quite some time. I've luckily found a new dad, but I remember leaving an abusive house just with black bags at one point because local authority wouldn't give housing, even just temporary accommodation, because they didn't have any. For me, housing is a really, really big one on that. And how do we improve housing and the accessibility to housing for people in emergency situations that is also discreet and in undisclosed locations and things like that is something that's really important to me. But for quite a bit of it, I think it's through education, it's through getting people of all backgrounds and all genders into all the roles. I think for a long time we've had kind of our building and our planning system very male dominated, because for a lot of time in schools and stuff, women have been told, oh, you can't do that role. I think we are getting to see a change, but it massively needs that funding in schools and on local authority level to boost the kind of to boost everyone to be able to be in those roles, so that actually when coming to design, people are thinking about all of it rather than just men doing a lot of it.
Great, thank you. Antoinette, we'll come to you next for that question.
Okay, so I think as deputy leader, I won't have the power to directly affect this, but I will absolutely loudly advocate for improvements to infrastructure. Apparently, I think I remember this correctly, homes are mostly designed for men, like door handles and counters, etc. So encouraging urban design and renovations to take into account women's physiques. Also retrofitting homes. So that women, single mothers, carers, and so on, don't have to bear the brunt of increased energy prices. That's something that I've been really advocating for, retrofitting homes. But anyway, accessibility for women, pregnant women, women with children, and also ensuring that measures are put in place to make sure that women can feel safe, not just at home, but also outside of the home, and especially at night. I think I remember correctly that Ghana put in a curfew a few years ago where only women were allowed out at night. So that's an extreme example, but it's like a seed of an idea. And then you have sort of night cycles for women, solely for women. So things like improving cycling infrastructure so it goes through safe routes so women can feel safe cycling at night, and indeed just walking around at night. So just trying to sort of design our cities to accommodate women's safety.
Great, thank you, Antoinette. Frank, we will come to you next. Oh, perhaps we will not come to Frank next. Frank may be temporarily disposed. We will go with Annie instead.
Thanks. Yeah, so I mean, this isn't an issue that isn't just about women, it's also about people who are perceived female or assigned female as well. I'm a single parent myself, and I rent. I'm in my late 40s and I rent with a child. And because I took a salary sacrifice to get involved in politics, it's really hard as a single parent to get anywhere else to rent. Landlords just don't want you. It's really hard. We don't have any social housing provision. We've got a massive social housing provision in Bristol. So one of the things that I've been doing as a councillor and thinking about the urban design part of this question is making sure that we work to make sure we have social housing that people need. And one of those things is family homes in the places that are existing communities. My ward is an inner city ward with a lot of families on the waiting list. And I've worked with developers to make sure that rather than creating one-bedroomed or studio apartments as a social housing provision, we've actually got 3- and 4-bedroomed apartments with outside space for families on the social housing register, so that those families, those women, are able to stay close to their caring networks and their support structures rather than being forced to move out and away from their support structures. And that's what we need to do as part of our urban design policy, is making sure that we don't just provide and make sure we don't just build the largest amount of units, we build the units that we need in order to keep families in their existing communities and their support structures.
Thank you, Annie. Who did I put next? Alex, we will go to you next.
Yeah, thank you. So I know this is referred to as being the obvious one, but I think the first thing we definitely need to do is get more women elected, so that our climate resilience strategies are being written and shaped by people who have who those strategies routinely ignore. I'm very proud of our record of this in Worcester. In all the elections I've been involved in, at least half of our slate of candidates have been women. And after the last city council election, our Green group on the city council was evenly split between men and women as well. To come back to a point around Chaz's mention of urban design, part of this I think is things like benches being available in places, whether that's suitable for mothers who are breastfeeding, or grandparents who are looking after children, so people can get around and feel like they're not going to have to find somewhere to sit down if they need a rest. These are all, especially in hot weather, and and making sure shade is available so that people are able to exist in our cities as they heat up. I would like to see gender-based impact assessments on all policies to properly judge the effects on women. So an example of this, where this has been missed in Worcester, is our county council, which is rated one of the lowest in the country for active travel, spent active travel funding on improving the towpath along the canal that goes through the centre of Worcester. Now, since I have been elected, I've been banging the drum again and again that the towpath is not active travel infrastructure. They are narrow, they aren't lit, they can be secluded, and many women and vulnerable people will not use them if for walking, let alone cycling, for those reasons. So what has been installed is crap at great expense and mainly benefits men, and we definitely need to change that as soon as possible, because it's very difficult. I think on Thomas's point about making sure women leading, I'm also.
That is 90 seconds.
Oh, sorry, I did 10 seconds. Sorry.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Frank, we have got you last. Are you available?
I'm here. My Wi-Fi has gone a little bit dodgy, so I've gone camera off. So it's like
That's
a radio
right.
show now.
No problem. Okay, go ahead.
So absolutely, the first thing we have to do is recognise that improving life for all improves life for all, in the way that automatic doors and drop curbs haven't just helped people with disabilities, but people using pushchairs, for example. And I just want to use this question to do a massive shout out to my epic single mom, who is a member of the Green Party and is just fantastic. And without her support, I wouldn't be here in the Green Party today. And I briefly mentioned about my dad earlier and the caring responsibilities, but we really need to recognise that these so often fall on women. And when we're talking about winning elections, we have to think about the single mum who's trying to get to a pub meeting, and perhaps how that isn't so accessible for her, and how we do this on really the local level and a simple level. But when we talk about urban resilience, my partner lives in Spain, in Barcelona, and whilst it's been incredibly difficult and challenging for Brexit and all these things, it has given me the opportunity to live in Barcelona, which is a city which has prioritised green spaces, pedestrian areas, and public transport as a way of not only calling it city, but ensuring that it is accessible for all. And I think we also need to go beyond just improving our cities, but ensuring that we have wage equality, that we lift the two-child benefit cap, and we provide free childcare as well, to ensure that everyone has equal opportunity to be able to get involved, particularly in things like politics. And as a young Green on a small council allowance who's been on universal credit during their term, I know how difficult that has been.
Thank you very much, Frank. All right, that's that for question 4. Just looking at the time now, I think we're going to manage 2 more questions before we do final statements, just to give everyone a heads up. So, Chaz, you will be answering the next question first, and I'll read that out now. So, question number 5 is, at a time when misogyny, misogynoir, and transmisogyny are at epidemic levels, how will you support marginalised, minoritised, and racialised women, cisgender and trans women, and non-binary members of Green Party internal bodies from harassment, vilification, and misrepresentation? So, over to you, Chaz.
Well, it's pretty shocking to even consider the fact that there might be harassment and vilification in internal bodies of the Green Party. So that is completely unacceptable, and I would reject it and take whatever steps are necessary or available to me as deputy leader to essentially, stamp it out, or be able to work through a disciplinary procedure. As I said, it's completely unacceptable to find anybody in that kind of situation of harassment. So, I mean, yeah, I would give full support to anyone in that situation.
Great, thank you, Chaz. Frank, we will come to you next for that question.
Thank you. I'm going to try and wrap in a few themes for this as well, because I know we're going to miss our later questions on leadership as well. And so I think that the first thing is being able to turn up, listen, represent, and be accountable, which is exactly what I think we're all doing today at these hustings. And having a good relationship with people in the party, particularly those on GPEX, to ensure that we're able to get things done and feel like we as leaders are leading a good tone for the party, and that people feel able to approach us and to be able to come to us and make sure that we're able to root out the issues which very much do exist in our party, unfortunately. And that's the internal approach, but we also need to make sure we're doing this externally and leading by example when we're combating reform, Andrew Tate, the rise of misogyny, and how this is impacting in young men and the way that they feel, I guess, empowered to treat the women around them, and particularly people of colour as well, from Global Majority Greens. And I think we as a leadership team have a real responsibility to invest in our party, in our processes, And this comes through growing our movement. So I think by breaking through in the polls, by winning more elections, we are able to then increase the income of the party, our finances, and to be able to make sure we have a disciplinary committee that's perhaps paid. Often our disciplinary committee as well is disproportionately women and queer men, and we need to make sure that we're involving everyone in these discussions, and we have better training and resources to make sure that we as a party are practicing what we preach.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, we have got Antoinette up next for that question.
Sorry. Okay. I feel like I keep banging on about this. I'm going to go with it anyway. I've had a smear campaign wielded by people who have purposefully misinterpreted my tweets and hustings responses solely to undermine my campaign. But I think fortunately most people, I believe, have seen through this. But it is harassment, vilification and misinterpretation, and has damaged my reputation and caused undue stress. And I think it is very much tied up in colorism and misogyny. And this also acts as a warning to others, as Annie said earlier, to not put their heads above the parapet, to stay in their lane. It silences people. So we need to call this behaviour out. We need to ensure that our disciplinary process has the means to effectively deal with people who do this. We need a racism policy, a clear definition of misogyny and so on. And we need to make sure that all women in the party have a safe space to discuss the issues they are facing, so they don't feel alone in dealing with this abuse, because it is that keeps us down and silenced.
Thank you very much, Antoinette. Ash, we will come to you next.
I think we should have leaders who will challenge, condemn, and dismantle any attempts to smear people holding internal positions. I'll give you an example. There is a website called concernedgreens.co.uk that purports to be concerned Greens worried about a certain group of people. I'm on the list, so I feel quite entitled to talk about it. On the Concerned Greens page, you can find Andy Healy, a former member who is put forward as a whistleblower trying to save the party. You can also find Mars King, condemned for whistleblowing about a child abuser in the party. The big difference, Andy Healy is white. I think it's a very clear racist standard being held by this group, but also it's not a group. If you look up the website Who Is Information, it is Hazel Pegg. I think it's important to point out that these sorts of attacks are normally orchestrated by a small handful of people. Concerned Greens isn't multiple people, it is Hazel Pegg, and I can prove that. Dawn Furness quite often tackles Green Party members and purports to represent more people than she does. She tried to get my address off me right after I moved house, right after my house got attacked. She invented a fictional legal case to try and get me to surrender my address. I'm sure she definitely doesn't know who threw a brick through my window, and I'm sure she definitely didn't plan to pass my address to them if I gave her it. There is a very small number of people in the party. As a deputy leader, I will challenge, I will dismantle, and I will condemn these people, and I will not allow them to represent themselves as more than they are.
Okay, thank you, Ash. Thomas, we will come to you next.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest kind of steps to go about this is to actually understand that there is a problem. It's not the kind of, oh, I can't believe that there is. There is. And we need to be very clear about that. And then we need to plan to tackle it through policy and also through our internal party structures, which, as other people have mentioned, tend to be quite unrepresentative. For me, it's about kind of educating people that there is a problem and here are the solutions that we can use to fix it, encouraging people to vote for people who are actively talking about fixing those problems. As a deputy leader, I'm unable to be, if I was to be elected, we're not able to get involved in internal disputes. However, something that I have constantly advocated for is expanding our disciplinary committee to have more people, because I know a few people that are on the discipline committee. It's a lot of work and they are severely stressed a lot of the time. It's a very difficult role. So I think that we, as a party, as we're expanding, we should be looking at how do we support that committee to be a better role, but also as well to kind of encourage people that, you know, when you see something, say something, to kind of make sure that people are reporting it and that they know that these systems are here to be able to deal with those problems.
Thanks, Thomas. Okie dokie. Alex, you're up next.
Thank you. So I have said in other hustings and interviews that my preferred style of leadership is that of a servant leader, i.e. I'm not the one out front laying down the tracks for the train. I'm here to clear the obstacles for the train building track team. So if anyone is suffering from harassment or vilification and misrepresentation, I'm here to listen, be their advocate and push for resolution. If they want me to make noise about it publicly, then I will. And if they don't, then I won't. As I am a white cis man, I'm not going to say how I would fix it. It's important that women and non-binary members being marginalised, minoritized and racialized are centred in the conversation. I think I agree with Thomas that it's not a surprise or a shock to me that these things go on because, as much as most people I meet in the Green Party are nice, it doesn't mean everyone is, and there definitely will be people who will try and use their membership to advance their own agendas. I think on disciplinary committee, we need to make sure that is properly resourced because I think justice delayed is justice denied. So it has to have swift, fair and well-resourced judgments so that we can get these things dealt with quickly and move on rather than letting them hang over us for months and months or years at a time.
Thank you, Alex. And then Annie, you're up next.
Thanks. Yeah. So firstly, I'm sorry, Antoinette, you've had that campaign. Ash as well. I know I've been following that one, unfortunately, for a long time. I've also had a really horrible negative smear campaign against me in this particular campaign as well. And for me, it's based on I stood up to, I've only ever submitted one complaint in my life using the disciplinary committee, and it was as a result of some quite nasty, not content note related stuff, so which I won't go into, but as a result of that, I've had a really awful smear campaign where I've had endorsers contacted and told terrible things, and they have removed their endorsements of me. And that's what happens when you are a queer person, a trans person, a black woman who puts their head above the parapet. And that is why, unfortunately, we keep on doing it, because we're not going to back down, because we have to keep on pushing through, because when we don't keep standing for these things, then they win. And their message that we don't belong in this space, we feel it. And so does every other person who is from our demographic. They hear it too. They hear it loud and clear because they see those smears. And that's why myself and Ash and Antoinette will keep on putting ourselves in, and Martin as well, because he's also had terrible grief in this campaign. It's not acceptable. We say we do politics differently. We are not doing politics differently. One of the reasons why I'm standing to be deputy, and so are Ash and Antoinette and Moffin, is that we say we're going to do it differently. And I want us to do it differently, because if we can, as a political party, do democracy differently and actually have a clean campaign for this role, then we don't deserve to hold any more power than we already do, because we can't hold ourselves to account. We do need to fund our disciplinary committee and support it so that
Annie,
our
I'm gonna have to
disciplinary...
stop you there. I'm sorry. That's...
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah.
Is that our disciplinary committee members work really hard and they get endless grief and burnout, and we need to support them, because it's not acceptable, the treatment that they get either.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. Okay, we're on to our last question now before we do final statements. And Alex, you will be answering this question first, just to give you a little hint.
Okay.
I haven't read the question yet.
Oh, sorry, carry on. I'll wait.
Too keen. Okie dokie. Question number 6 is sort of semi-related to the previous question, but more about the structure of the party and the processes. So the question is, have you seen any areas where our party has issues with misogyny in our structure, our processes, or our culture? And what will you do about it if elected? Go ahead.
Thank you. So I think a real low point of this leadership campaign was a moment in the LBC debate with Ian Dale between Zach and Adrian, when a man, and I know who it was, and I'm sure we all know who it was, rang in about the definition of a woman, and Adrian and Zach then debated the subject, moderated by a man. So then, in effect, we had 4 cis men discussing the definition of a woman, with no women in the conversation and no recognition of that fact by any of them. And these are men going for the leadership of our party. So similarly, on the Today programme this week, Zach and Adrian were on again, introduced by Nick Robinson, and Ellie Challenge was not mentioned during the introduction at all, and neither Zach nor Adrian pointed it out either. And I think these are two things that I've watched, the only two things I've watched in this week, and this has happened in both of them, and I think it's embarrassing and shameful for all of us. Now, I'm not saying that Zach or Adrian are misogynists, but I think that this speaks to the embedded misogyny in society and even progressive organisations like the Green Party. So if I'm elected, I will commit that outside of one-on-one interviews, I will never, ever appear in an interview with only men and require that women are in the conversation at every level. And I will do what I've always done and call out misogyny wherever I see it. Much like anti-racism, I think it requires active thought and action and vigilance to root out and keep out.
Thanks very much, Alex. Antoinette, we will come to you next for that one.
Okay, so I think we need to keep an eye on how emboldened people feel in actively persecuting other members. People, I think, clearly exploit our disciplinary process to fight grudges and personality clashes. So that should be relatively easy to encourage stopping as deputy leader. So we don't have direct power, but we have soft power, right? We also need to make sure that we have a good gender balance of people in positions of power in local parties right up to GPECs, so that misogyny gets called out quickly and is avoided in the first place. Because if we have more women and non-binary people in positions of power, that will help. I've been trying to find out what the gender balance is for our council positions, because if, as I suspect, the case is certainly from the by-elections that I've been aware of and helped in London, I got the feeling that most of the people running were men for council positions. And of course, that is going to exacerbate the problem by reinforcing the idea that men are more capable than women and non-binary people and so on.
Thank you, Antoinette. Okay, we will come to Frank next.
Thank you. As a leadership team, I don't think it's our responsibility to talk about individual cases publicly, but I want to sort of talk without talking about a very real experience which I've seen within the party in my role as a campaign manager and working with a local party, which really did suffer this on a local level and almost probably collapsed because of it. And just through that time, there was a tendency to sweep things under the rug because of the political cost of speaking out. And those of you that have been involved in the party might have an idea about what I'm talking about, but there is a real responsibility, I think, on us, and if elected as your deputy leader, to stand up and to absolutely call out this kind of behaviour, make sure that we do root out these problems and that there is no political cost, which isn't worth taking because the means do not justify the end. And that's so important that we as Greens understand that and that we live by that. And so I was brought in as a campaign organiser to help rebuild and prepare this party for future elections. And just understanding the way that we as a party are going to face more and more of this as we grow and being ready for that. We have to lead with tone and talk about things in a way which combats, oh my gosh, this is so short, but there is so much that we need to do. And that comes to training, to reinventing the processes that we have and ensuring that we are uplifting everyone that we can. Talk to me afterwards.
Well wrapped up. Thank you very much, Frank. Okay, Thomas, we will go to you next.
Yeah, so I haven't experienced it, but I've seen it. I've spent a lot of the time in the party doing a lot of internal roles like EROing elections. I was deputy ERO under Annie at the last conference as well. And you do see it where people question the ability for people to do roles based on characteristics that have nothing to do with that role. I think that the way in which our party runs the deputy candidate, deputy leadership race in this kind of gender balance should be massively expanded into other areas of the party. I know we do it on GPRC votes as well, but I think it's something that we should be seeing as a baseline. It was something that I worked on with when I was doing the ERing for the West of England election, is having that system in which, actually, if there's no male candidate, if there's no non-male candidates that stand, expanding that vote and then trying to encourage more people to stand. Um, but for me, it is actively trying to speak to people, having these one-on-one conversations to say that actually you can stand, and explaining actually if you do receive misogyny, if you do receive any kind of abuse, talk to the discipline committee and find ways through it. And I will 100% support anyone where possible.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will go to Chaz next.
You know, one of the things we've said as a party, and one of the big sort of selling points and big offers to the electorate that we make, is that we want to do politics differently. And that, I think, speaks to the rejection of that kind of unconscious male bias, even in things like council meetings, committee meetings. And certainly when you look at Question Time, Prime Minister's Question Time, you know how that atmosphere is very male dominated, and we've said consciously we're not going to be part of that kind of political atmosphere or procedure or method way of doing politics. And I think that's a really key thing. It's clear that we have major problems, but I don't know whether I've really experienced misogyny per se. There's a line between unconscious bias and misogyny. I don't think I've really experienced or seen misogyny per se within the party, certainly not within my local party, but we need to be very vigilant about how it might arise, and certainly support all so we'll give support to women who want to stand, particularly standing as a candidate in our local party.
Thank you very much, Chaz. Okay, Annie, we will come to you next.
Thanks. Yeah, and like top props to and hat tip to Tom for standing by me in Manchester when we were trying to do elections at conference, and the tech IT staff couldn't get the voting launched, and literally had 100 members in a queue, a lot of which were giving me a lot of aggressive, very misogynistic, quite transphobic abuse. And it was actual abuse from our members at conference about the voting software, which was out of hand, but holding that line on behalf of the staff team. And the thing that sprung to mind with this question was when I was first involved in the party. I was in my 30s, but I was assumed to be younger, and I was married to a man at the time, and it was widely assumed when I said things that I was being fed ideas by my male partner, because they couldn't possibly come from me. I couldn't possibly have those ideas myself. He was like some kind of power behind what I was saying, and I had that repeatedly when I was an assumed young woman in the party. And so I have the lived experience of that sort of misogyny and behaviour, and it doesn't change the older you get, to be honest. And if you're a black woman or a woman from the global majority or a disabled woman or somebody who's assumed female, you get that continuously in the party. And so what I will do about it is continuously pushing back. It doesn't always make me popular. It makes me perceived to be a pushy, annoying, irritating woman, even though I don't identify as a woman. But I will keep on doing it regardless, and that's what I will do if elected. I'll do it anyway, frankly, let's face it, but I'll do it. With the platform of being a deputy, I would do it even louder.
Thank you, Annie. And then finally, we will come to Ash.
In the 15 years that I've been a member of the party, I have seen Green Party women go from being an under-supported women's advocacy group to a battleground, to a desert where feminism goes to die. I think that one of the most harmful things to women in the party is what has happened to Green Party women, which is it has been turned into a husk of what it once was and is now effectively used to puppet anti-trans views. You can see it in the newsletter, have a look through. Half the content they do in their book club is about how terrible trans people are and how terrible the advance of trans advocacy is. It's not even a veneer hiding it. And what has happened is that when feminists have engaged with Green Party women, they have been chased out, they have been abused, they have been maligned, they have had complaints put in about them. Feminists have been chased away from Green Party women, and I find it personally embarrassing to be in a party where in my opinion, most misogynistic advocacy group in the party is Green Party women. I think that is in part why Green feminists exist, and I think it is clearly a massive problem, and it is a huge structural issue. I don't know how we tackle it, but I think calling it out is a start.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty, we are going to do final statements now, which are all going to be 1 minute long. I will continue to do my sign waving thing when you have 10 seconds left at the end of your statement. Before I come to you all, I'm going to read the statement that Rachel Millward sent because she was unable to join us. So let me just get that open. Okay, so this is what Rachel said. Dear fellow feminists, I'm away from home just now and thought I had sorted a place with connection for this evening, but sad to say it hasn't worked out. Gutted to miss time with you all because these questions couldn't be more important for us all and to me personally. I studied at the African Gender Institute in South Africa and learned there, alongside women from 9 different African countries, a variety of feminisms and the vital realities of intersectionalism and the deep damage of colonialism and patriarchy in all forms. I came back to the UK fired up to work for equality for all women and set up an international women's film festival called Bird's Eye View, which, through its success as a festival, helped change the narrative for women in film, the most powerful media of its day. I'm so proud this charity continues today, rebranded as Reclaim the Frame, and works for all marginalised genders, embracing intersectionalism as it brings diverse narratives to our screens. Realising the unspeakable impact climate change was going to have on global majority and women in particular, I decided after some time on a bridge in XR, listening to leaders from Pacific Islands, to pivot to work for nature and climate and in the explicitly political realm. I was elected in 2021 as the 3rd Green Councillor on Wealdon District Council in Sussex, which became the joint largest group in 2023. I now share the leadership of this council after 50 years of Conservative domination, driving a mission to make Wealdon greener, fairer and kinder. I have learned firsthand the difference it makes when Greens are in power and cannot wait to help the party communicate our policies for people and planet so much more widely. So sorry not to be here to share in what I'm sure will be an insightful discussion. Please check out my website and find more videos on any social media channel. Also happy to chat with you directly, email on the website. Thanks to the brilliant Feminist Green team for all their inspiring work and for organising this tonight. I didn't just put in that shout out to us at the end. She did say that. Okay. That is Rachel's statement. So I will move on to everyone on the call now, and we will start with Antoinette with your 1 minute final statement.
Yikes. Okay, so I'm going to answer question 10, which was driving force for why I'm standing. My driving force would be to be able to represent the people in our party who are pushed aside, silenced and tokenized, to amplify their voices. And I'm not just talking about women or people from the global south, but also the elderly, people who want to be free to talk about social justice, and people who want to be free to talk about the climate crisis. And one of my favourite policies is Rights and Responsibilities, RR 200. A green view of rights acknowledges the interconnectedness of all things, the finiteness of resources, and the ethical imperative in politics. It therefore sees human responsibilities not as a counterbalance to individual and collective rights, but as integral to them. And this is my last hustings. So if you want to find out more reasons why to vote for me, go to my social media, TikTok and Instagram, both at Green Party Antoinette, and you can email me, antoinette@hackney.greenparty.org.uk. Thank you.
Oh, didn't even need the 10-second mark. Thank you very much. Alex, we will come to you next.
Okay, thank you. So I stood in this election because I wanted to make the case to scale up what we know works for electing Greens, which is target to win and hard work on the ground. You have probably heard a lot of talk in this campaign about cutting through, and I agree that getting our message out on social media and broadcast news media would help a great deal. But here's the truth. The media in this country are not interested in the Green Party. They are not interested in solutions to the climate emergency or social justice or inequality. They're interested in division, engagement, clicks and eyeballs for adverts. Their owners are interested in reform winning now for the same reason they've supported the Tories for years, which is it will make them richer, and they're the most insulated from climate breakdown. Double, triple, quadruple or whatever our coverage is still almost nothing. We can win by playing a different game. green means hard work all year round. That's how we win, and we need to scale it up. So that's the most important policy to me, that we are the one party that works hard everywhere we stand all year round for our residents. And that's why I'm standing to expand where we campaign rank Alex first.
Thank you very much, Alex. Okay, we will come to Annie next.
Thank you. So I'm on my third term. I'm one of our most experienced councillors in the country. I've been Green Group leader. I've been the national ERO. I was the highest ranked second place in the whole country in Bristol East. I really understand the party and how it works. I was co-chair of Green Party Women and the only one to have not been suspended in recent history, and a co-founding or credited co-founding member of Feminist Greens as well. I'm working class, disabled and queer, and I'm trans. My lived experience will bring a huge amount to the party and help us connect with the communities that we really need to be connecting with in the future. This is a team effort as well, predominantly, more than anything else. And my leadership style is one of holding the ladder and giving real a step up, inclusive, intersectional, integrity and impact as leader. And that's what I'm offering, is something that is not about me, it's about us as a party, which I'm ambitious for, and we can do the most amazing things if we all work together.
Thank you, Annie. Okay, we have got, wait, let me take you off there. Frank, you're up next.
I'm also going to end with my reasons for being here today. And that began in 2019 when I joined the party as a 21-year-old who was released into the world, having come out of education and just seeing society full of division and hatred. And I was elected as a councillor in my area, the first councillor, and seeing the Green Party grow to our peak of success that we're enjoying right now. But in the most recent elections, seeing that enormous rise of reform really, really scared me that we are going to slide back so much as a country, and we can't allow that to happen. And when I stood for Mayor of the East Midlands, we beat reform in their strongest region, the only place where they had a Member of Parliament at the time, in Lee Anderson. And I want to bring that experience, my experience in the party over the last few years, to really make sure that we cut through on the national level. I want to bring my campaign organizer experience, make sure we elect someone to the Senate, that we cut through on social media, and that we make sure that we have compassionate politics which uplifts everyone. And all of that's possible with the most nominated, most endorsed candidate in the selection.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, we will. I've lost the ability to count at this point in the evening, guys. Ash, you are up next.
All right, I'm not going to talk about myself. I'm going to talk about the future. I appreciate that this is a one-year election, but I think there is a general consensus that what we are electing is a leadership team to take us forwards into the next general election. Certainly, if I lose, I'm not going to stand again next year, and I would hope that we can all agree that we'd like to support whoever gets elected so that we can move forwards towards the next general election. With that in mind, I would encourage you to think about the 9 candidates you've got and think about what each of us might look like going into the next general election, having been deputy leader in the intervening time. We would all grow, we would all change, we would all develop in that role. Amelia developed in that role, Zach developed in the role. Elect the deputy leader that you want to go into the next general election with. Elect somebody who you think is going to develop and grow and flourish into the kind of representation that you want for this party, because that is what is most important.
Thank you very much, Ash. Thomas, we will come to you.
Yep. So I've held the position as the youngest councillor in the Green Party for the last 2 years, which I did lose at the last lot of local elections. But I got into the party from a fabulous woman, a councillor here in North Somerset called Bridget. I was already in the party, but she encouraged me to kind of actually get out and be involved in that. Actually, someone of my age can be a councillor, can do great things. And that inspired me to actually, I want to replicate that, and I want to tell the stories of all of the members that we have, and all of the political elected representatives that we have, and how we can tell the population, the voting public, about why we as the party are better. I've had a huge amount of election experience, and I will continue to just help push the party forward, because it's my home and it's what I want to try and make better.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And then Chaz, we will come to you.
Thank you. I've got two daughters, they're now grown up, but so for me, feminism is not just an abstract concept. It's been part of our lives for the last 28 years in both cases. And that's why I got involved in politics and joined the Green Party, is that I could see what kind of legacy mine and previous generations were leaving for current and future generations. And it fairly well just pushed me into becoming as active as I could be on political and community scale as well. I've worked on community projects, community energy, and I've worked in areas which are, integral to the whole struggle to mitigate and fight climate change. That's what I would bring to the role, is an understanding of that, and also an understanding of what we need to do to communicate our policies, particularly to connect with people on economics.
Thank you very much. All right, everyone. That was a bit of a marathon. I'm going to congratulate myself for chairing this. It was challenging and we are nearly bang on time. So well done me and well done all of you. From all of the Feminist Greens Committee, we would like to say a massive thank you to the candidates for coming along to the hustings, for answering our pledge questions on our website, and also for standing for your roles, because we really appreciate what it takes to put yourself out there in the party. As many of you have mentioned, it's not always a very positive experience, but we really, really appreciate all of you putting yourselves out there with positive messages of hope on what we can achieve as a party. I think that's been great for all of us to see. So thank you very much to all of you. Best of luck for the elections, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And thank you for coming. Thank you everyone for attending to watch the hustings. Thanks all.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks,
Very much.
guys.